you learn in the course of time is that things are not nearly always what they seem to be when you first look at them. And one of the things that actually makes a difference when you look at things is your perspective on life. I want to talk today about the idea of Ascendant and Descendant on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Sunday, the 30th of January of 2022. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on Locals.com, on Parler, if you happen to be catching me there, on Minds.com, Minds.com, and various other places that you may be catching me today. Welcome aboard. Thank you for coming. And again, we're going to talk on the idea today of Ascendant and Descendant, and we're going to talk specifically on a subject that is the result of something that I saw recently. Let me get into my notes and we'll kind of discuss that a little bit. To say I get a lot of my ideas for what I talk about from others who have put various content out there would, if anything, be an understatement. One example of this comes from a recent commentary on one of Dinesh D'Souza's podcasts, where he talked about the idea that India was an ascendant nation and the United States was a descendant one. I'll not argue whether or not India is on the up escalator as a country. Further, I won't say there aren't things about America that show some level or measure of decline. I think that is a fair statement. That said, I want to make some things plain regarding this idea that because India has begun a long climb out of poverty in some respects, and the U.S. appears to not be as affluent as either its former self, or even modern-day India in certain regards, Mr. D'Souza's characterizations of the two are somehow valid across the board. To begin with, I think a lot of folks fail to realize just how large a country India is. By estimates I've seen, India is about a third the size of the United States. Granted, it's a great deal smaller. It's only a third the size, but with a much larger number of residents. Even so, the idea that there's somehow a sort of rising tide in India that's making the country more livable may be valid, but it doesn't change the fact that very many people within its borders live in a deplorable state of poverty, and still others in a marginal way, even if they're not quite so impoverished. It's true that Indian rail and airports, particularly larger, more important ones, are being upgraded by all appearances, such that they look better than those in America. Is it true? Is that true? I think it is. I believe it is, and others can answer for me to be sure. I personally have no knowledge, but no real reason to believe it's not the case either, right? Considering Americans are far more likely to travel in cars than either of the two, I wonder how significant a thing that is. It's long been a standing view in this country that neither trains nor airliners can drop you at exactly the place that you want to find yourself. My brother just went to Seattle, and he had a 30-minute drive just to get from the airport to the place where he was actually staying, or passenger, whatever, the point is it took 30 plus minutes to get there. We've also been a people who want to pick up and go without waiting for a scheduled flight or train. It would be somewhat surprising, therefore, if most Americans found themselves in largely common use of such utilities. Excuse me. Find my place here. To say air or train travel is on the decline in the United States would not be at all unfair. That being true, it's not surprising that train systems and airports, along with the conveyances in question, are declining. By the way, I think that there's an argument for the fact that that's not occurring everywhere in the United States, but that having been said, I still want to kind of give the general notion of the decline of those things in the United States as something that I think you could probably say overall. India has long been a somewhat socialist entity. It's less so today than it has been in a long time, but that's where it lands. As such, they're very likely to make it so such things look spiffy. Whether they're the best solution to their transportation issues or not. And by the way, again, because of the size of India and how close together things are, how many people there are and so forth, they're probably a better solution in India than they are here. I could, and may very well, talk about some other considerations, but I want to give myself time to discuss the things already considered in my free section when I get to it. Is the United States on the decline while India is on the rise? Let's take the rest of this podcast to discuss those ideas. I think that it's absolutely fair to say that particularly when you look at things on a place-by-place analysis, that the United States has areas, certainly, and particularly when it comes to larger cities lots of the time, where it is in decline. And I think it should be recognized that there's some very important reasons that that's true, and one of them happens to be the political bent of the leadership in those larger cities. We've had people appoint or prosecutors be elected, one or the other, where the prosecutor has decided that they're going to be soft on crime, and it has caused many problems in those places. It's very obvious in those larger cities. That's a truth. That's a reality and something that we have to face. That means that there's going to be a decline in lots of areas. Lots of times what happens is what they have referred to incorrectly as white flight, in which people decide that they're not going to stay in the city if they decide that the city is not livable. And what ends up happening is you end up with these other areas where people find themselves. This happens all over, by the way. I have family that's Hispanic, right? My son's family, particularly, and my wife's family, however you want to look at that, and they're Hispanic, and they don't live in, say, for example, downtown Dallas. No, they live outside of Dallas in not what would not even be considered suburbs. It's literally small towns that have found their way around that area, right? And they're nice little areas, and they're beginning to even become problems in those. But the point is that there's a movement away from those larger cities, and this is part of the point about the United States. You can make the argument that larger cities in India are improving in their quality if you choose to do so, and you can make the argument that large cities in the United States are declining in their quality. But the fact of the matter is, if there's any reason for that in the United States, I can tell you what it is. It's that there are a lot of people out there who are not staying in those cities. They realize that if they stay there, they're going to have to deal with the fact that there are people, individuals, who are willing to behave in ways that are unreasonable, and they choose to move on. Now, my personal take on that is if you want to keep those places, you have to stay and you have to fight. But the reality is that lots of people are not willing to do that, and they will move somewhere else. And what you'll see happening in the United States is certain areas will become more and more advanced, more and more exciting to be in, and so forth, and other places will become places that you really don't want to find yourself. Most people have no interest in being in Detroit because it's been so damaged by the political and the sort of, when I say political, I should say political in terms of the leadership, and so damaged by the political ideologies that thrive in those places that the places just don't do a good job of upkeep and so forth. And so what happens is places become worthless. Same has happened largely in New York City. You can make arguments for that in places like Los Angeles, California. There are many places in the country where you can see decline. But the idea that the United States as a general thing is declining, I don't think it's necessarily a good one. Am I saying that it's wrong to say that India is not ascending? They're not on the ascent? They're not ascendant? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying that there are parts of the United States that can be seen as, there are not parts of the United States that can be seen as declining? No, I'm certainly not saying that. There are certainly descendant places in the United States. But I want for you to understand that in general, it's probably not a good idea to use that as your benchmark, particularly on a country-by-country basis, because it's not really possible to do that. I need to go ahead and wrap things up because I'm over my time already. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Sunday, the 30th of January of 2022. That would be the beginning of that Christian week. Tomorrow will be the beginning for most folks of the work week, Monday, the 31st of January of 2022. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on Locals, on minds.com, on my Facebook page, on Parler, if you happen to be finding me there. Wherever you happen to be finding me, I hope that you're enjoying my content, and I definitely would like to know that that's the case. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. Remember, you can give me a boxing glove or a rumble on Rumble if you choose to do so. Remember that you can also give me a like or dislike on any platform where you find me, so that I can know what you're thinking about my content. Most of my comments recently, unfortunately, have been garbage that I've gotten on various platforms, Rumble being notable for that at this particular moment in time on one of my videos. If, however, you comment on any of my videos, I will do my best to look at those videos, and I will moderate only in as much as I feel that your content is obviously not at all related to my video. However that looks, you can even disagree with me. I'm totally fine with that, just like I am with negative feedback if you choose to give it to me on whatever platform you're on. But definitely comment if you can do so, and I will do my best to look at it, and if I feel it's reasonable to do so, I will respond as I've done to pretty much every comment that I've gotten in past. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on Monday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This podcast was recorded on Sunday, the 30th of January of 2022. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that, and you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.